I'm Darren Alexis, and welcome to a 20-something survival guide, the place where you and me learn to survive and thrive in our 20s and beyond. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Illyanna Lopez. Hold on. Is that how you say your name?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
You need to keep that in. You need to keep that in.
I always get so nervous. I'm like, I know everyone's name, and then I go to say it, and then I'm like, wait, maybe I should have fact checked.
No, that was perfect.
Okay, perfect. She is a teacher, a 3-time state championship winning dance team coach. Wow, that was a mouthful for one. Second of all, that's extremely impressive.
Thank you.
How did that happen?
Oh my God. 2 of them happened in a year. So I coach a middle school and a high school. It was my 7th year coaching the middle school team, first year coaching the high school team. So first year out, our high school team was state champions. And that's like crazy. So like they called us for winning for middle school. We like ran and took a little picture as a team with the trophy. Then I came back and sat down and they called us again. I was in tears.
That is so cute. Anyways, that doesn't finish her introduction because she's a world traveling Latina and a 30-something that has been there, done that. So do you want to add anything to your introduction so the listeners can get to know you a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I'm super excited to be here. I feel like, so I've been like listening to your things and we follow each other on social media. So it's really exciting to actually talk face to face for once.
Period.
I feel like we know each other, but I was just talking about how I'm obsessed with your little Positano lemon reel. I cannot get that thing out of my head. But just things about me, I teach middle school math, so my social media presents itself as super like out there and traveling all the time, which I for sure do. But like day to day, 9 to 7, not even 9 to 7, 7 to 7. I'm a teacher, coach. I teach math, so I'm pretty regular, which is fun to be here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, I found you through my friend Bailey because we're all EF ambassadors here. We love to travel. And Bailey was like, Darian, you have to follow this girl. She is amazing. I love her content. I was like, okay, Bailey.
Wait, shout out Bailey.
Follow.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, Bailey's like, you have to check out her content. And I'm like, all right, I will.
Aww.
But more importantly, I have you here today because you are a 30-something. A lot of us listeners are 20-somethings. And so you are wise. You have been there. You have done that. And you can help us with this transition from our 20s to our 30s. So first things first, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, your 20s and just kind of reflect on that and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I went to school at the Big Ten school. My early 20s were spent, like doing university things. What was challenging is as a teacher in your senior year, you do an internship. So it's basically like you're a full-time teacher without the salary. Like you're not paid for this internship. So when I feel like legislators, hey, where you at? Let's support our teachers. All of my college friends were, 22, like living their best senior year college life. And I'm literally working every day. Like, it'd be like, let's go out to the bar. I'm like, I have to go be in charge of 14-year-olds at 7:30 a.m. So I think that kind of like plays a huge role in who I am and who I was in my 20s. Because I kind of had to grow up a little faster with like the career path that I chose.
No.
I'm 25. COVID's a thing. So like my mid-20s were really like altered by that event. And then being, in my older 20s later on, I'm like, okay, I just spent 2 years inside. Like, what am I going to go do? And that's where travel kind of like kicked in. I'm like, well, I want to go out seeing stuff because I feel like I would have seen stuff had I had the time the past 2 years, but just like didn't work out that way. And so, yeah, I think my mid 20s having COVID be a thing was just really life changing actually. And
yeah,
that's kind of like the trajectory of like how my 20s kind of played out.
And so did you start traveling in your 20s or had you traveled out of the country before then?
Well, no, my parents are super like, let's go do stuff. I mean, my mom was 9 months pregnant with my brother and we were in Barcelona. I was 6 years old.
Oh my God.
Like my parents were always super like, let's go just do stuff. And they were never afraid to take us anywhere. So yeah, I traveled with them beforehand. We'd been a few places, but then once I'm in school, like high school started, we're in sports, my brother and I are doing all these things. So like, we just didn't really go around as much once we got older, but I knew I wanted to study abroad when I was in college. And so I studied abroad in Italy and we were like the guinea pigs for this program. They were like, we're just going to ship off 25 potential teachers to Italy and you're going to go work in Italian schools and teach Italians. And we're like,
oh my
okay.
Goodness.
So I think that was my first time of like independence traveling, which like, yes, I'm with a university, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody lives near me. I lived with two Italian parents who were in their 80s and spoke zero English. I had never taken an Italian class, which was like, they never prepped me for this. It was basically just like, hey, go try this. And I'm always like a say yes kind of person. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my first time like really traveling on my own. And then I did a little bit pre-COVID with like EF Ultimate Break, obviously. And then it really took off after. So
That is amazing. And you kind of have been talking about some of these milestones that you felt like you went through in your 20s. So, was there one thing or one moment that really you feel defined your 20s or help you transition into your 30s?
one is hard to pick. I've mentioned like what
A
COVID did,
few.
I think, a little bit. But
Yeah.
I would say, okay, I bought a house really young. Like I bought my
Oh my
house when I was
gosh,
20.
really?
Yeah, I was probably 23, 24 maybe. I'd gotten a job like straight out of college at a school that I was really excited to teach at. And for like 2 years, I was living in an apartment with friends. But like as your friends start to leave the university, they start to move away, right? So I bought a house to kind of just like, I'm sick of paying rent. I want to like decorate my home. Like I want to be somewhere. And
Yeah.
I was not moving back with my parents. I just was not doing that. So I think that's kind of established like home for me. Like home is where I live currently. I feel home here. And that's kind of made me like plant roots a little bit.
Yeah.
But I also, it's so now being in my 30s, I do feel like I'm in a transitional period where I'm interested in just leaving. Like I'm just interested in seeing what else is out there. And I
Oh
think
my
people think it's
gosh.
like too late. I don't think it's
Yeah.
too late. And I'm interested in like what else is out there.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like on this podcast, I just talk a lot about how we're all at different points in our life in our 20s, and the same thing applies to your 30s. So to hear that you already bought a house is absolutely crazy because I can't even imagine doing that right now.
Yeah.
I wish that's something I look forward to. But you said you kind of want to go out and move. How did you picture your life, I guess, in your 20s? Like, what did you think your 30s would look like?
I thought I would be married with kids. This is like 12-year-old me being like, I'm gonna be married by 25 and have my first kid
Yeah.
at 28. And when I'm 30, I'll have two kids, a boy and a girl. Like, I don't know, that's just like what you think about when you're a little
Yeah.
kid and that's what you see, right? Depending in your situations, like you
Hmm.
want what you see in your experience of life when you're little. And so like that's where I thought I would be. And I'm 100% that not there. I'm not in a relationship. I am no kids, like living my single life. So I'm not where I thought I would be. I definitely didn't
Hmm.
ever think about like what it looked like to buy a house or what it looks like. I've been in my same
Yeah.
career. I've been in my same job, same position for 9 years. Like I don't really know what I
Wow.
expected career wise,
Hmm.
but like socially, relationship wise, all that like aspect, I don't know that I am where I am. And even with like the EF Ultimate Break traveling stuff, right? Like I never thought that
Hmm.
that would be a possibility. Um, I'm nowhere near where I thought would be, but I'm not mad
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're not mad about it because I see you out here and you are doing amazing. You're always thriving. You're hanging out with friends. You're traveling. You're winning 3 championships. Okay. I absolutely love that. And so, since you're not where you supposedly thought you would be,
Hmm.
have you felt like panicked by that or stressed by that? Can you walk us through kind of like how
Yeah.
you felt?
Yeah, a little. So I'm really feeling it now, where like maybe it's the holidays or the time of year. I'm
Mm,
like in the nitty gritty of work. So like all of my friends are in relationships, dating, having kids, married, and I'm just like, okay, this is about to be really vulnerable. I was just talking to a friend about how I feel like I'm always the third wheel, the fifth wheel, the seventh wheel, but they don't make
yeah.
me feel that way. Like I
Hmm.
don't ever feel excluded. I'm invited to everything. So my friends are always like, they're my friends first. And I feel that. But like internally, I'm always like, can I cuss? I'm like, damn, like
Yeah. Go ahead.
okay. I'm a teacher. So I'm like, I can't cuss ever. But I'm like, damn, like I really feel pressure from myself to like have somebody. I don't have a go to. I don't have a go to person where it's like, I can just pick up and be like, hey, we're going to see a movie. Let's go. Like that just doesn't exist because
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's go to is their partners, and I just don't have that. So I think there's a little bit of pressure there. And then I get home from work and I'm like, I love alone time. I love being able to come in and like grab a drink from the fridge and throw on Salt Lake City Housewives. I know relationships take time. and I'm also not willing to put in the time quite yet. So it's
Yeah.
not like I'm doing anything about it. Like I'm not dating. I'm not on the apps. I've tried the apps, and in a town like mine, it just is not a thing. So hey guys, if you're single and out there, I'm available. But I do feel pressure sometimes of like there's a time ticking, and I don't know that I want to have kids or not, but like that timeline is slowly fading out the
Yeah.
older you get, you know? So there is a little bit of pressure there. I just don't know that I see my life changing as quickly right now.
I really appreciate you for like talking about that and being vulnerable because I know you are not alone. I know a lot of the listeners feel the same way. So I think even just knowing that other people are out there exactly like you going through the same thing is extremely helpful. But I was going to ask if you had any sort of tips or things that have helped you kind of get through those feelings of aloneness or kind of the feelings of pressure that the listeners could utilize in their own lives.
My friends joke that I'm chronically busy. My friend and I are trying to set up getting coffee, and I'm like, I'll see you February 25th because literally every Saturday until then, I have a dance competition. There's probably psychology out there of like people who are the busiest are avoiding addressing other issues. I've done a lot of talking to therapists or people in my life about what that means for me. But I like to stay busy. I like to do things outside of my comfort zone. I like seeing shows. I've become pretty independent, I think, as a result of
Mm-hmm.
it. But I'm proud of my independence because I know people who also have a hard time. Like, they will never go see a movie alone, or like they're like deathly afraid of going to a restaurant eating by themselves. And I just feel like you limit yourself
Yeah.
if you're not able to do those things. And so I think trying something small to find your independence is really helpful because now I'm traveling halfway across the world on a plane by myself. You know what I mean? I think my tip is to try things on your own and then like really build your identity and be confident in that. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. No, I think it's helpful. And do you feel like you kind of put in that ground foundation in your 20s, or do you feel like you kind of started having more of these realizations when you got into your 30s?
I feel like it started in late 20s because I think in early 20s, I'm focusing on my career. Again, I'm in a career where you are in charge real
Hmm.
fast. Like they're telling you at 22, you're in charge of 150 14-year olds in my case, or whatever case you're in the education world. And so like I was kind of figuring out that side of myself as like career at first. Then COVID happened. So I think after that, I was a little bit of like, okay, the world just shut down for 2.5 years. You never know what's going to happen. Let's just like go do it. So I think in my late 20s, like 27, 28, I was more pushing myself to try other things. And that's just kind of continued to feel more confident in my 30s. When you mentioned that you wanted to interview me about my 30s, I was like, oh my God, I'm in my 30s. But I don't feel that way. I felt that way on my
Yeah.
birthday. That whole month leading up to my 30th birthday, my friends are like, Illyanna, what do you want to do? How do we want to celebrate? Like, what do you want to do? I'm like, you guys, I want to do nothing. I want to do nothing. Like, I'm so stressed about being 30 and not feeling like I've reached certain milestones, like you mentioned earlier. And like,
Yeah.
this is really sad for me. Like, I felt really sad about it. And then I woke up that morning and like, oh, I'm gonna cry. I like walked into my classroom and my kids were like 100 kids were yelling, I had like screaming happy birthday to me. But they were singing happy birthday to me. I was like, oh, like this is fun. Okay, great. Like I get birthdays. I get a 30th birthday, and not everyone gets a 30th birthday. Not everyone
Yeah.
makes it that far. And so I felt like super like, okay, this is where I need to be. This is awesome. And then I went to bed the next night and woke up the next morning and I was like, okay, I'm 30 and what? Like it was like such a like crazy cycle of emotions in that 24 hours of like dreading it, waking up, realizing it's okay, I'm here, and then going to bed like the next day. It's like, all right, back to work. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. I think I almost started crying too. I'm
yeah.
very much an empath. So if I
I
see
just,
someone crying,
me
I'm like,
too.
okay, I'm gonna cry.
Me too. I'm such a like, if I see somebody cry, I cry at like proposals, I cry at
Me
like
too.
reunions, people, strangers on the
Me
internet I don't
too.
even know. I cry at everything. But I don't know. I just felt like that day specifically, I just remember being so like dreading. And then it like all turned out great. And I've been thriving ever since. I'm 31, by the way. Like I turned 31 in September. So I've been in my 30s for a little bit. I'm still pretty young, but
Yeah. See, I think you're still young too, but I think that so many of us are going to go through that feeling as well. 30 is a big milestone because you're
mhm.
right. So many people don't make it to their 30s. we never know what's ahead, and we're just scared of growing up, but
Mm-hmm.
growing up is so beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that you had so many people to share that with, especially the children that are just like so proud of you and who you are, it's just, I love that so, so much. Do you feel like, as you said, you're 31, so you haven't been in your 30s too long, but
Yeah.
have you noticed your priorities shifting at all? I know you said in your 20s, you're focused
Mm-hmm.
on your career. Like, what are your main priorities now that you're 30? Are they different than from when you were 20? Is there like a huge change there?
My job is a huge part of my identity. And so it's constantly taking care of other people, right? Making decisions for other people,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on other people's well being. And so I've tried to learn more how to manage that paired with
Yeah.
like managing myself because like if my battery is not charged, I can't charge others. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think my priorities have been focused on like building who I am as an individual through things that I enjoy, pushing myself to do things I don't normally do in my small town,
Yeah.
really prioritizing my family. My parents and my brother are the closest people to me, and my brother, he's a officer in the Navy, so I don't get to talk to him as often as I
Oh.
do. He just texted me yesterday like he's back on land. I'm like, great, like let's chat, you know? I think just prioritizing like things that make me happy and not stressing about things that don't. Like I
Yes.
yeah, it's so crazy how much in my early 20s I focused on like things that just didn't matter. They don't matter. Like right now I'm like, why did I spend so much time thinking about that? It does not matter right now.
I
And the
could
only way I
not
can
agree
relate this
more.
to people is, and I talk to students about this, and I'm like, how many of your friends are you friends with since kindergarten? Not a lot. So you having beef with friends right now, you might not be friends with them in 10 years, and that's okay because we all grow and we all evolve and we all change. But like think about yourself then. Did that really matter? Like maybe not. And then reevaluate for
Yeah.
how you're going to address that for future you. Just prioritize what's really important. And sometimes it takes time to figure out what that is.
No, I agree. I feel like I am starting to have a lot of realizations now as I'm nearing my 30s. And one of them is absolutely that I have prioritized a lot more family time. That's something I didn't prioritize in my early 20s
Mm-hmm.
because I was in college. I'm like, friends, 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 me,
Yeah.
selfish, selfish, selfish. And now, which I literally say all the time, I'm like, your family's getting older. You never know what's going to happen. So if you can really focus on the love there and finding out more about your parents and siblings
Mm-hmm.
and trying to build those relationships, I think that's important. Another thing that I have or I'm trying to get better at is saying no, like setting boundaries. I
Mm-hmm.
am not good at setting boundaries. So that's something that I feel like I'm really trying to work on as I'm nearing my 30s. Are you good with setting boundaries? Do you have tips? Is that something that's come with age for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm really good at setting boundaries. Like because
Give me the tips.
I know what the feeling is after I say no. It's relief.
Yeah.
The feeling is always relief. It's usually never regret. And so
Yeah,
if you know like this is just not something that you're willing to put forth the energy in and you're doing it to protect because sometimes it is you're trying to protect other people's feelings. You don't want to disappoint them or this might shift your dynamic with that person.
for sure.
But like 9 times out of 10, it's just like, okay. And then we just move on.
Mhm.
It's okay to say no. I also hope that in your life and in mine, like I have people who are understanding. And I've
Yeah.
learned to be more open in saying no. Like no is not an excuse. In order to give you the most attention I can, I have to say no right now. Let's reevaluate so that we can have this conversation later so that I can give you my full attention. And I think if
Mhm.
that's how you phrase it, because that's how you feel, people are more understanding of your no.
That's a really good way to put it. I think that whenever I say no, I do feel relief, but for me, I still feel the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
I do personally. I know that's something that I'm going to have to work on. I don't know how the listeners feel, but like I feel like I jam pack my schedule so much like you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do feel guilty saying no, but whenever I do say no, I can like just sit and relax and kind of get that me time that I need. So that's something that I definitely want to focus on.
What part for you is there anything besides guilt that's hard for you when you're saying no? Like you feel like you're disappointing them or are
I
you
just
disappointing?
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm disappointing people. Like lately, I've had a lot of like family things going on. And so I've been spending a lot of time like with my sister and, talking with my family, but I'm also still trying to see my friends and I'm
Mm-hmm.
also still trying to record my content and show up for work and show up at the gym and show
Mm-hmm.
up for everything. So that's leaving me with like zero me time. But when I say no, I'm like, oh my gosh, now like my sister might be over here like crying, or now my friend has to do
Yeah.
this alone. And like, so that's like what something I struggle with.
You know what's really funny is like, I think this is a 30s thing. So I think this kind of fits in with our theme today. But my friend just moved to town, and she used to live back in this town like maybe 5 to 6 years ago, and she moved back. We're so busy. Our hangouts are grocery shopping together. Like we
But I
make
love that.
no, it's literally like a girls' day out. We pick up and we get coffee, and then I'm like, hey, I'm going to the mall to buy this sweater. Do you want to come run this errand with me? And she's like, yes. And I just like swing by, pick her up, and that's what we do. So it's like fulfilling the fact that I need to get things done. And also like we're getting chat time in the car together, that kind of like time that we need to fulfill each other's soul. But also like I also have
Yeah.
to get stuff done.
No, that's a really good compromise. And I feel like I can definitely do that with some of my like long-term besties, but I just moved to a new place. So I'm still
Right.
formulating some relationships. And so that's like a whole nother episode, just forming new friendships and kind of
Yeah.
like having to be present and showing up sometimes, but like still setting the boundaries is so important in every aspect
Mm-hmm.
of your life.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the fears you face with the transition. So I know you said you weren't exactly where you thought you would be by now. Were there any other fears or feelings that kind of bubbled up before that 30th birthday?
I mean, I think growing a family is part of that. And
Mm,
my like thought process of what that would look like obviously is not the same as it's turned out.
yeah.
As a teacher, I also go back and forth between like, you have a child and that's your child for the rest of your life. Like, it's not just an accessory. And so, are you financially stable? Do you feel like, do you want a partner to be involved, your partner to be involved in that? Because some people are okay with being, single parents, or there's so many different family dynamics nowadays that like everything exists and all of it is great. But I
Hmm.
think just evaluating like what that means for me and what I want in my life. I'm also not ready to make a decision yet. But again, like a clock is ticking. Like literally biologically, a clock is ticking. And
Yeah.
so then you get into conversations with people about like freezing your eggs and what does that look like, and that's super cost prohibitive, and do you believe in that? So I don't know, I just feel like family planning is a huge conversation in your late 20s and 30s, because for women that timeline is so different, and
Yeah.
that just becomes like a whole other layer on top of that stress, I think. And I think the phrase that really gets me is like, when it happens, it'll happen. That's
Yeah.
such a crock, okay? I'm gonna tell you, listeners, respectfully stop telling your friends that it'll happen when you least expect it. Please, please. That's like the least helpful thing you could say. And
So what is something that is helpful?
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm so glad you asked that. Showing up for your friends and just saying, like, is there anything I can do to support you?
Hmm.
That's so open ended. And that's so huge because that invites opportunity for your friend to be like, yeah, you can help me by not asking, or you can help me by inviting me to things so that I can meet people,
Yep.
or you can help me by let's hang out, just you and I, just so we can chat together. That question to me is huge. And people are like, what can I do as your friend, as your colleague, as whatever to help you? That's so
Hmm.
open ended, and they can answer what they truly feel is best for them. But being like, girl, you'll find it when you least expect it. Girl, get out of here. Be so
You're
for
like,
real.
I want to punch you, actually.
Be so for real. That's crazy.
No, but I
Because you
think
also don't know
that
that they
it's
want
really
that. You also don't know that they want that, right?
that is true. And as you said, you're still trying to like figure out what you want. So a lot of the things you brought up were one, really important, two things that I haven't even quite thought about. So have you looked deeper into any of those sort of family building options for yourself?
I have. And they're so expensive, right? Like, it's so
Hmm.
crazy how family planning is so financially driven. And I am sure there are some resources out there.
Hmm. That was going to be my next question. If you knew of any resources that might be helpful.
Decisions on I want my family's future to look like, or the access to healthcare that I get is
Yeah.
really driven by elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really consider that and take that to heart also about what our country's climate looks like when thinking about planning for a family.
And I think that is extremely, extremely mature and reasonable. And I really respect you for like taking that into consideration because I think there's so many things that people don't take into consideration before they jump headfirst into stuff.
And I don't think they know how to because they're not in
Yeah.
the realm of education. Like, I
Yeah.
think being a teacher has really opened me up to what families look like and
Mm-hmm.
what is needed to put all of your energy into raising a child. And you just don't know what you don't know. So when you're not in a career that works with children, you just don't understand. You've learned from your parents or your friends around you, and that can
Mm-hmm.
make you feel one way or the other. But I've had, 9 years of experience with 140 different kids. So that's over 1,000 kids that I have just seen in various lights of family dynamics. That's, I think, opened my eyes a lot to like, a kid's not an accessory. There's a lot of planning that goes into this.
Yeah. And so I think it's amazing that you're still taking the time doing the research you need to do and figuring out what's best for you and what's best for your future family.
Yeah.
So I hope the listeners, if this is something that you are thinking about or hope to do in the future, that you're doing the research needed. And this podcast is not the only resource you should be utilizing to
No,
make that decision.
no, like read articles, go out there, talk to people in your community, reach out to doctors. I think that's why
Yes.
I'm having such a hard time making a decision is because, again, it's like narrowing where the information is coming from and
Mm-hmm.
deciding what is best for me. There's just so much out there and it's so much to filter through. On top of you like working a full-time job and leaving time for your family and having social time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot at play.
Yeah. And I think that another thing that's at play is even if you do want a family, like also like potential partners, if you do see yourself in wanting that, like would your potential partner also want a family? And I think that that could impact the whole decision process as well, whether you have a current partner or whether you're looking for a future partner.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a ton of stuff with that. Other than the family building aspect, is there any other sorts of themes or things? I don't even know how I'm trying to phrase this. Basically, like, is there any other goals or things that the listeners should think about that are, coming in their 30s?
Yeah. I'm going to sound a little crazy. I don't know if the crazy is the word. I've really hit a lot of personal goals that I'm so thankful for. So goal setting for me is hard because it's like what next? And
Yeah.
I am hungry for more. I'm a lifelong learner. When I have okay, so I'm a teacher, right? But I've also like broken a little bit into the social media world. I've
Mm-hmm.
loved getting creative and learning about like editing and softwares and video content creation and like using algorithms and just that's so interesting to me. And so I think a goal I have is something related to that. And I don't know what that looks like. And that's a completely opposite side of like all of my goals that my education and training have brought me towards. If my principal's watching this, chill out. I'm not leaving the school. I'm not getting away from teaching quite yet. I really do enjoy it. But I'm just curious of like what else is out there. And I think career changing or like something adjacent to what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in exploring. Just something and I've been doing it, right? So I'm just interested in like that side of life.
Would you ever be interested in being a principal?
No. You know
My
why?
sister says the same thing.
Is your sister in education?
My sister is in education. My sister is, I'm sorry, Lindsay. I think she's 31. She's literally like you,
Oh my
like
god.
twins. She is single. She is busy. She's a cheer coach, not a dance
Okay,
coach,
go off,
but
queen.
like very similar to you. However, she would never come and talk on my podcast. So,
That's okay. Yeah, no. The higher up you get in administration, the further away you get from kids. Like you're dealing with
and
more
you,
of like the
yeah.
political business side of like running a school. And though I think I'd be good at it, I like being one-on-one with kids. I like working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So probably not. I mean, I'm not saying no, but I don't
Not
know.
saying that.
I don't know. It's just not anytime soon.
Yeah, totally get that. I do want to revisit what you said because that was something that I hadn't really thought about is the goal setting. So in our 20s, a lot of us are a mess. I would consider myself like pretty, like I have achieved a fair amount of my goals, but I also consider myself a mess. You have already achieved several of your goals. So
Hmm.
you're feeling a little bit more established. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Yes.
Not necessarily established. I
No,
just
I
mean
feel
like,
established. I do feel established. I just want to try for more, and I don't know what that more is yet. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Like I'm a
Yeah.
goal-driven person, which I that's the point of like life, I think. It's like meeting milestones that you've set for yourself that you thought were impossible.
Yeah.
I'm just in a spot where now where I'm comfortable, and
Mhm.
so I'm trying to figure out like what is next.
Yeah. And I just think it's really reassuring to hear that you have by your 30s achieved a lot of your goals. And even if you are, like very close to your 30s and you haven't, that's okay. But for some of us that are like, I still don't know what I'm doing, to know that like within a few years, it will work itself out a little bit, that kind of feels reassuring to me.
I also think there's like no pressure, and we've talked a little bit about pressure here.
Yeah.
A lot of my pressure though is internal and
Hmm.
never external. Like there's never people putting pressure on me. Like even my parents are not like, we want grandbabies. Like, what are you waiting for? Because they see that I'm living a life that they never got to, right? And I'm thankful that I'm in a situation where they're just proud of me regardless. Like they are my number one fans. But I think if you feel like you're a mess, I think you need to start by looking at celebrating what you are good at, what you have done.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get into the negative. I'm missing this, I'm missing this, I'm missing this. But like, y'all are baddies. Like everyone has their niche of like, this is what I'm really good at, and I'm really proud of this. And I think it's easy to think that your life is in shambles, but take a second and reflect on what you are good at and what you have achieved, because that then is like, hey, like I did that, and now I can do the next thing again. We don't
Yeah.
celebrate ourselves enough, and I think we need to.
Yeah, I think we do too.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, though, on the opposite end, is there anything that you do regret? Is there anything that you wish you did differently leading up
Mm.
to where you are today?
Oh, that's a good question.
And it's okay if you like have no regrets. And if you don't, I love that for you.
I don't know that I have regrets, because this is gonna sound so cliche, but like every mistake that I've made, I've learned from and adjusted.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that like every experience, positive or negative, is a learning experience. And so when something like doesn't go the way that I'd planned or doesn't turn out the way that I envisioned, it's like, okay, like why did that happen? And how can I change what I did that time for next time so that it doesn't happen again? I also have a hard time finding regret because I say yes to a lot and I say no to a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm.
Because I know what my boundaries are, I don't feel regret because I know
Yeah.
that my yeses are hard yeses and my nos are hard nos. And so I don't put myself in situations where I can feel regretful, because I'm like, yeah, let's go, or no, that's not for me. Man, boundaries are key.
Yeah. I'm taking a page out of your book.
No, they
I feel like
are.
a lot of my regrets is really just holding on to things that aren't meant for me.
Mm,
And I have found myself in my 20s holding on to friendships that I shouldn't be in.
mm,
Found myself holding on to jobs that I'm just not passionate about or don't
mm-hmm,
love, or, putting myself out there in ways that I think I'm supposed to. And so I think for me, that's something that I want to focus on. That's really my only regret, is holding on to things that I don't think are supposed to be for me,
mm-hmm.
but that's something that will be easy for me to kind of like transition into, later on, and just continuing to like reflect on it and learn what's best for me. If that
I
made any sense.
No, that's totally makes sense. Okay, do you know who Marie Kondo is? This is crazy.
Yes.
So she's a woman on Netflix who organizes her home and others people's homes.
Yes.
She holds a piece of like an item and is like, does this bring me joy? And if the answer is no, it goes in the donate pile. That's literally how I think about things. And
That is literally what I did this month because I did Declutter
I
December
saw that.
and I did this. That is exactly like what I was doing. I'm like, does this bring me joy? Do I love this? Does this suit me? And if it doesn't, it's time to go.
And the things in your life that are not tangible items that don't suit you, relationships, friendships,
Yes.
jobs, whatever. Again, the reaction after the no is relief. It's relief. Like you
All
feel
back
a
to the
weight off your
boundaries.
No, for real. Like you feel a weight off your shoulders. I was recently asked to join a leadership position at my school. And I was like, I can't do one more thing. I love the idea of this opportunity. I just can't stack another thing on my plate. And I was like going through everything in my head of like, how do I make this work? How do I make this work? So I could say yes. And then finally I was like, I can't. I'm like, this is an awesome thing. I'm so glad that you thought of me for this, but I just can't. And I left the meeting just like, oh, like, yes, okay, great. Like, I can now focus on doing the things that I am currently doing really, really well and not stretch myself thin because I said yes to one more thing that I just wasn't ready for. Boundaries.
Got it. Boundaries are key. Focus on and celebrate your successes. I'm learning through this conversation, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
No, I'm so excited to have you here. Next, I wanted to ask, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone about to enter their 30s? Like, what's your top tip? You've sprinkled so much wisdom throughout the episode, but like, what's our one top tip?
I just think you need to know yourself. And that's such a hard thing to do and say because, like, who am I? That's also like personality traits, right? Even at the beginning of this, we have a culture in America where you're defined by your career. And so the questions and conversation and small talk are always, what do you do? I'm so defined by my career, right? We've talked about it 5 to 10 times throughout this whole process, throughout this podcast. But I also know who I am as like a leader. I am assertive. I am organized. I am pretty type A. I'd like to think I am colorful. Like things that define you as who you are outside of things in your career, relationships, all of that stuff. And so knowing who you are is such a broad thing to expect of somebody of their 30s, but think about ways that you can discover who you are through things that bring you joy. That's huge.
That is huge. And it was very well put as well. And so as you're looking forward, what are some things you're really excited to for the next 10 years?
I'm really excited for what's to come that I don't even know exists. I had no idea at this age I would have traveled to 47 countries.
Yeah, that is absolutely insanity. Also, check out her Instagram, check out the TikTok while it's still there, and the YouTube linked below.
Yeah, I just I was able to bring my brother on trips for free. We traveled for 34 days for free.
Love.
I am excited in 10 years for something I don't even know exists yet. And that's like equally terrifying and really exciting.
That is amazing. No, I agree with that. I don't even know if right now where I'm at, I'm just trying to focus on what I have, but to get to a point where you can just be excited for what's to come is amazing.
And I think that's a different point for everyone. I don't know that that's defining in my 30s. For some people that happens to them in their 40s and that's okay too. You know, like that's where I'm at right now. And so it's an exciting place to be.
The last question I ask every guest before we get going is, what is your number one piece of advice for 20-somethings? And this does not have to be related to our episode topic at all. It can be small, large, just like, what do you want to put out into this world?
I want people to know how valuable they are and that loving yourself is so important because you are with yourself 100% of the time. And so if you're not happy with who you are, you're stuck with yourself 100% of the time. So give yourself a chance to love yourself and find things that make you happy because you're you. That sounds so cheesy, but like, I just feel that that's so important. We're in a society where you're taught to critique yourself for every little thing. And it's easy to when you're comparing yourself to others on platforms of people you don't even really know in real life. So like loving yourself and being thankful for what you have is so important, and use that to build a fire under you to keep going for what's next.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And where can the listeners find
you? So listeners can find me on Instagram at Illyanna Lopez. It's my full name. Same with TikTok for now. I'm hoping hey listeners, if you're listening to this past January 2025, let us know where we're at, because who knows where that platform will be. Where are we? Are we on Pinterest? Are we on Lemonade? Are we on something that's not even created yet? I don't know. But when we
Yeah.
are, it'll be at Illyanna Lopez. I'm on YouTube. I have travel stuff on there. And yeah, that's where I'm at socially.
And it will be linked all down in the show notes.
Her.
So, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been a pleasure talking to you. And listeners, thank you for taking the time to tune in if you're still here. As always, I'm Darren Alexis, and don't forget to survive and thrive.